What's going on? Well, or no. Welcome to the Halloween episode, if you want to call it that. I guess. Samhain, huh? Go Celtic if you want. Well, I can tell you a little fun thing about this. 1 year ago today, a year and a day tomorrow, I began writing book 2, right? I say a year and a day because that's how myths go, and I already know tomorrow's gonna be nuts. I began writing book 2, right? I don't know when I finish it, but it's been finished for months. And you can see the evidence of it by the writing series. That's the writing of book 2. Now, it's been a fucking adventure in making that son of a bitch. But there's a part in that book which has deep symbolism of my journey inward. And the symbol is the cave, basically. I told you about this before. Now, Arison's inside of this place. And I've written so many scenes. I'll always come back to it and rewrite and add and rewrite and add. It's a whole thing because what it does is it mirrors my real life. I'm about to blossom, I can feel. I'm about to hit this damn plateau. Okay? Today's the day I chose to get back in there again because the veil's thin. And a lot of Samhain has to do with his ancestors and stuff. Now, my girl cats have been very close to me today, so I know something's up. Because I'll tell you the whole thing. So I'm sitting there trying to figure this out. I sat down, I'm like, let's just write something today. Let's just see what it is. It's Samhain. And so I started writing. And suddenly, I returned back to that fucking scene. Because I don't know, I stream of consciousness. And all of a sudden I realized, oh, I'm Eris again. Once again, I'm in this fucking scene. And he's prostrate, right? He's beside himself. In an unknowingness. He's just like, man, I don't understand. Like, I've lost everyone because of what's happened so far, and I don't have any answers, and I don't know what the fuck to do. And it's like, and it mirrors myself. And so he's just sitting there with it. And he's with his mentor, and his mentor, he says something along the lines of, your vision, your dream, which mirrors a real life dream that I actually had where I told you about this dream. I was brought down to this giant cave, this ceremonial, like, it was a cave network, right? I don't know how long it was, but it could have been miles. And all along the way were shrines lit with candles, and there was flower petals, there were images of some beings or something. There was a lot of offerings of bowls of gold and shit like that. It's a very sacred ceremonial place. Now, I was led down in here with this being. And we came up to the end to this giant statue made of stone. And it was a guy, it was a deity, it was something, it was a giant being. But I knew deep down inside that there was something inside of that stone statue. In fact, it was some higher being. And I went up to the being and I said, oh shit, I forgot, and I didn't bring an offering. So I ran back in one of the areas and I grabbed some golden dog and I brought it to the being. And he's like, that was, this is okay, but that was a grave mistake. And because of that mistake, I'm gonna make you void your bowels. And that's what happened in my dream. The next day I woke up and all of a sudden out of nowhere I had diarrhea and then I just went away. That was that. I did that with Eris, though I didn't say void your bowels, I said void this evil entity that hides inside of you. So Eris had that same vision before he was prostrate now. And Meteor, his mentor, was like, there's something inside of you right now, and I can sense it, because he's like a sensitive, he's like a Jedi, if you want to think of it like that. And he says, it's your ancestor trying to help you. And Eris is like, how can you know that? And so he drew on the ground these letters. And it just so happened, and this is all in real time, this is me figuring out too. I'm like, wait a minute, those letters spell Neopak. Neopak is one of the last human keepers. I'm like, holy fuck. It's like one of those moments where I'm fulfilling my own destiny inside of the book and my own prophecies and shit. I did not plan any of that. And so I was like, holy shit, and Eris is connected to this guy. So it was a whole ass fucking thing. And Mean Tour says, we have to go back into your memory, because that's where this lies, and we can probably find him in that dream. And I said, holy fuck. And I paused there. And I came out of that as myself and thought, well, this is me too. So what do I do? I grabbed this book, Celtic Wisdom Encyclopedia. I flipped through the first part that said, the memory of the ancestors. And I said, ancestors, today's Samhain, I'm writing, Eris needs aid from his ancestor, then perhaps I do too. So, I'm not even kidding you, the first thing I just saw from Memory of the Ancestor was called Consulting the Ancestors. And I said, well, this is it. First thing, it says, the mounds of the dead. We inherit everything from the ancestors. They have gone before us and remain the repository of wisdom and knowledge in our tradition. In nanoseconds, I was like, the stains of the ancestors, the shit that happened to your father affected him, and which that will affect you. All of this stuff, it's recycled. The ancestors can help us. They also, we carry on a part of them. So my example was always like, if your grandfather beat your father's going to leave that stain on you too, right? It's the, what is that called? The something trauma. The, forgive me, but I'm pretty sure you know what I'm talking about, right? They made a case about the Jews in the Holocaust and how that carried over. Ancestral trauma? I don't remember what it was called. Now, same shit, but it's the way we do that to each other is through emotion. So if I am having to decipher my own fucked up emotion, it's because it's got to be healed because it's happened in the past. You're carrying on ancestral traumas. And it's been going on for a long time. And so I saw the mound of the dead there and I was like, I gotta go. What I had to go do was I wanted to see my grandfather's grave. Now he passed away on May 27th of 1991, almost a month, because I was born on June 22nd that same year, before I was born. So I never got to meet him. But I've had this weird connection to him. It's the reason I wear this watch. It's the reason I wear these glasses. It's the reason I wear flannels all the time, even though I'm not right now. Because it's what he looked like in some pictures, and I'm like, I want to look like him. I want to be like him. And I know nothing of him, right? But I wanted to go see. I just felt compelled. But go to his grave today. It's Samhain. Go to his grave and pay homage to your ancestors, the ones that brought you here. We live in Adrian. Excuse me. We live in Michigan. I don't have this ancient place I can go to with my relatives in it. They're all scattered everywhere. I don't even know where they're at. So I went there. I went to the grave. Very windy day. Cross was a giant field, and I was in this graveyard, and I sat in front of his grave, and I just said everything. I said what I've been doing in my life. I basically talked to him like I'm talking to you in these videos. It felt weird because I was talking out loud, but I was talking to him, and I said, like, here's what I'm doing, here's what I'm going through. I just want to be a good person. I'm trying to figure this shit out. I know I have a purpose. I just don't know what it is, but I'm trying my best. And I'm trying to figure out who I am at the same time. I'm trying so hard to do this. And I'm doing it for you. And I'm doing it for me. And I want you to know that I care about you. And I want you to know that I'm saddened. Because my grandfather, diabetes runs in my family pretty prevalently. Like, very bad. Like, most of the people, like, there's some family members, like, they have those things that they have to pump the whatever that shit's called that keeps you from going into diabetic shock, insulin. Others have died from it, you know, like it's like really bad in my family, yet here I am, always drinking sugar. Somehow it hasn't got me yet, but I know it will, because every single man has it in my family, so I'm bound to get it. Now, he'd let himself die from it. His own brother was trying to tell him, you need to take insulin, you're gonna fucking die. And he says, I don't give a shit. Who cares? There's no fucking point in living anyway. Which I can understand where I get that from. Now, he eventually died at work, going into a diabetic coma. Of all fucking places to die, he's at work, right? And he's gone. Now, I have a little bit of resentment towards him for allowing himself to die and not being here for us when we could have used it. I could have used a grandfather. I never had one. My other one, left my, mother way back in the 70s. So, and he died before I knew even who he was. So I never had a grandfather. And I always wanted one because I thought that's where fucking wisdom comes from, man. Like, they teach you. And because they have the knowledge your father doesn't. Your father's in the throes of it. He's in his 20s trying to figure shit out. We got grandpa there who's like in his 40s to 50s. Who's a little more knowing and shit. And I never got that opportunity. So I was a little resentment. But I told him about this stuff. And I told him about what I'm doing in my life. And I basically said, like, I'm at a crossroads. And I'm trying to figure all this stuff out. But I don't know what to do. And I'm super confused. And I said to him, I know my purpose. I feel it down in my bones. I know I do. But I need your help. I need your guidance. I need to know what to do. And I was sitting there with it. And I have my charm, my lucky stuff on. I got this ivy pendant on. It's got Gork on it, an Ogum letter. And that Ogum letter has big significance in my life. And it just came to me out of fucking nowhere. I got my spiral here, which is my representation of how the world is like this fractal nature and everything has this pattern to it. But then I reached in my pocket and I brought these 2 special stones with me. I'm not a stone guy. I don't remember the name of the stones, so forgive me. But I had 2 and I said, I'll give you one and I'll have the other. And then it clicked. I said, the memory of the stones. There's like this ancient belief of stones holding memories. And as I was sitting in front of a stone of his grave, it clicked. I was like, you have this and I have mine. And when I have this here, I'm connecting with you because the other one is literally with your grave. There's like a little pot on the side and I put it inside. You put the flowers in? I put this in there, and I put 2 oak leaves that I found. Fucking randomly on the ground there. And I was like, this is so fucking pagan. Now I have it, and I can communicate when needed. Of course, here are the girls. Now my girl cats, I got 4 cats, 2 are girls, 2 are boys. Mama and sister, they gave me this feeling before I was leaving to do this. They met me by the door and they waited and watched me go, and I could sense, because they're cats, man, I could sense, like, okay, this is it, man, we're onto it. Here we move on. And so I'm telling you all this to say that I believe tomorrow, because it's a day in a year, something crazy is gonna happen. Not like in my life where I'm gonna fucking, and I moved out and I left my wife and no, like just something book related crazy is gonna happen, and I know it is. And I'm letting it just manifest. Here's the crazy thing too. So I went and visited his grave, right? And I got done. I said, I'm gonna go now. I will talk to you soon. I drove off, and down the road, so this was in a little tiny village called Palmyra. I don't know if you know anything about Palmyra. I think it's a Greek city, if I'm not mistaken. Look into that. I went to this place called Blissfield. Hand of God. It's the name of this it's a town not far from it. Blissfield. There's a big antique mall there. So I went inside the antique mall. I love antiques because they make me tired. Whenever I go into an antique shop, I'm like exhausted. I feel so much energy that I'm drained from it. I use it a lot to purge and to gain. And so as I was in there, hand of God, there was an advertisement. There's like a local radio show that they were playing. It's my grandmother's advertisement, I would say it wrong. She owns a company called Sweet Baker, which Baker is my last name, and so was my grandfather. My grandfather's first name was Glenn. That's my middle name, right? So I'm named after Glenn Baker. I'm me, Glenn Baker. Hence why I carry this, right? But that was his wife, my grandmother, and her ad played. As soon as I went in that, I heard her ad, I heard her voice on the advertisement, and I was like, huh. Now there's some stains in that because they left each other. They were said to have only gotten together because he didn't want to go to Vietnam, and so it was arranged and shit, and I don't know anything about it. All I know is he has a lot of pain, I know, because of she left him. And that side of the family doesn't like, the Baker side doesn't like the other side. She's that Shirley, the Irish, too. But I've talked about that in a video before. That's where the family conflict happens. The Hatfield McCoy shit. It's fucking stupid. But anyway, I heard her ad on there and I was like, I must have to contact her. Because so I'm gonna in a little bit, but I was just like, I felt it. I was like, that's what I need to do. I gotta contact her. And I don't know how to say it. Because it sounds nuts. And I know it's going to happen. It's going to fucking manifest in front of me. But I got to kind of say what he needs to say. And it's tough. There's a lot of fucking pain, man. A lot of fucking pain. That man, my grandfather, died in a lot of fucking pain. It's so strong. As soon as I was driving out there, I was getting a fucking headache, and I knew. I was like, oh God. I have a headache now again. Because it's so fucking much. But I knew I have to do this. They had separated before, you know, and then stayed separated, and then he died. He let himself go, right? He killed himself, in a sense. He didn't take care of himself, so there he goes. Now I'm saying all this stuff because in the book, it always mirrors, right? So in saying all that, I have to sit and dwell on how the fuck do I mirror this in the mythology? Ancestral wounds, man. How the fuck do I mirror this? In a way, because the book has already taken off. It is in the air. We are not on the runway anymore. I can't sit and change everything. I have to find a way to take everything I just told you and make it a mythology. And make it a symbol. Make it a metaphor. Because this book, this mythology, works hand in hand with my life. It solves my life and my life solves it. Sorry, time for school getting out? Bloody hell. So, I just think it's a really interesting thing, being that today's Samhain, or Halloween, is equinoctial, isn't that what it is? Equinox. I'm not a very smart man, I'll tell you. But here I go again on my own. Going down the only road I've ever been on. Let me show you something. To kind of show you the synchronicities of this all. If you've watched anything about my channel and you listen to me, we're on a journey of discovering self. We're on a motherfucking journey. Now, I was listening to a woman who talks about fairy encounters, fairy sightings. And there was a guy on who used to be a druid in the Ovids, Bards and Druids order, or whatever the hell it's called, right? Modern Druidry, come from the 1700s, feel however you want to feel about it. Anyway, his name is Adrian. Well, I was born in Adrian, so I was like, I'm gonna listen to this. A druid named Adrian? I want both. And he had made mention of Ogham letters, so that's kind of like, you know how Norse have the runes and shit? Well, the Celts, at some point in history, I'm not really sure when, started to write on the stones, and they would write on the sides. And each tick mark represented a letter, and there was a language to it and shit. And he said he made them. So I thought, okay, I have an idea. There's an image. There's an image that has always meant something to me. And I drew it up, and it's a symbol for the stone. my, it was something like this. Super simple. It's like a little cross, two things. That's it. Nothing crazy. I'm like, I have an idea. If I see he carved, because he carved in little pieces of wood of different types of trees, and he says, I put in an Ogham letter. And I said, I have an idea. I'm going to blindly look to see if that's an Ogham letter. And it just so happens that it's very similar to one. And I got it here. I'm not going to show you up close because then I got to take it off. It's a whole ass thing. But essentially, it's just, it has this additional little legs at the bottom. And I was looking over his thing to see that sign, and then I stumbled upon it, and I said, I'm getting it. I'm not going to read anything about it. I'm not going to read anything about this. There's the sign that means something to me, and I'm buying it. And I got it yesterday, and he wrote a letter. And there's a little thing here, and I'm going to read it to you. It's the last thing before we go. I'm talking about synchronicities and stuff, okay? This is, thank you for ordering one of my hand-carved Ogham talismans. This ivy was harvested from a fallen oak of considerable age, not far from a stone circle in Shropshire. I hope you get as much magic out of this Ogham as I did in carving it. Many blessings of Gork. Adrian. I mean, he drew Awen at the bottom there. So I was like, Gork? Okay, what the fuck's a Gork? And he carved it into ivy. Okay, that's not a tree technically, but listen to this. A warning, determined power. Sorry, these are the things that it is. A warning, determined power, binding, restriction, search for the self, attachment, freedom, and uniting. These are things it represents. And I was like, we're already in the next room. But let's continue. Underlying energy. There's a fierce, determined power to the ivy. It has the ability to bind many trees together and restrict passage through the woods. It can eventually smother and kill a tree. Even the mighty oak. Should a dense ivy thicket appear in one of your other world journeys, you should stop immediately and examine your motives, either there or in your life. This destructive aspect of the ivy is a warning about wandering without thought and attention to the whys and hows of what you're doing. Do you remember my little video about the whys? How we go down the scale of whys to find the I don't know? That's fucking it. The ivy represents the search for the self and the wandering of the soul and the desire for enlightenment. It will link you with others through the group collective soul. Binding things together, not necessarily a tree. That's me as a motherfucking person. It is up to you to understand whether your wandering restricts and binds or unites. Clinging to one tree, one concept would be restricting and even damaging. Remember I was telling you about thought forms and shit? Motherfucker, dude. But embracing many concepts and energy patterns will bring confidence and put you in touch with your own freedom and inner resources. Freedom means going where you choose, but it is where you choose to go which will reveal your true inner perspective. It is what you choose to do with that freedom that will tell you much about what aspect of yourself still needs healing. Communicating with the ivy. The ivy is another of the Ogham fuse, which is not a tree, but grows with the support of a host tree. Like the vine, it will unite different trees together, although it can be much more destructive. With support, the ivy can grow really thick trunks, and with some searching, it is possible to find a really old plant with which to commune and find the wood to make the stick. That, my friend, is generally what I do in the book. I find these different people that have nothing in fucking common, but I see something in them, and I feel myself wanting to bind them together, to bring them all to this room and say, here we are, let's create, let's make, let's be. That, my friend, isn't your stereotypical Halloween-y fucking story. I didn't tell you a ghost story, okay? But I told you all this to say, when the veil's at its thinnest, serendipity always hits, man. And so does the idea of synchronicity. I myself, on my journey, have wandered into so many different rooms along the way. But at the same time, I'm always met with the right things that are meant to come my way. Once I decipher all this, I'll figure it out and I'll throw it into the books. And here we are, once again, on a journey to discover self. And you are along for the ride. Hopefully, it inspires other people to begin their own search. And perhaps, at the end of the day, maybe we can all stop playing those stupid fucking games and be real human beings once again.